You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way.
Welcome to the party, to our unfortunate business. It's not a hunt, it's not a blood sport. This is population management. We are here to cull the spell list of the world's greatest but not best role-playing game and try to cut its flabby page count down to size in time for the forthcoming 5.5 edition, and I'm still calling it that, yes. So this is the channel where we just go through the spells, hopefully in a more rapid manner, although we have a couple of extra, knives here, so the gutting might be a little more elaborate today.
Yes. Enough chefs, enough cooks to make everything go really quickly. That's how that saying goes.
Yeah, so we have veterans Liam and Owen to really, put the boot in on the, make sure these spells are dead.
Hello, I'm Liam. We've been drafted in due to our extensive knowledge and love of 5th Ed.
Yeah.
I'm an OG hater. I will. Don't worry, I'm here for this.
I think you're going to find yourself in good company, Owen, because if there's an unkind cut to be made to the spell list, I'm your man. I think I've approved about 3 so far.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I want to get that right down to I want the spell list to fit inside your utility belt, not a set of encyclopedias. Right. So we got done with the A's. Scorched earth all around. We're moving straight on to, controversially enough, the B's.
Yeah.
What's the first one? Not
the first one, right? Is the classic debuff spell Bane, although the 5th edition version is a very non-classic way of putting about it. It is pick 3 creatures. They must make saving throws. If they fail, they get a minus D4 to all of their attacks and saves. So, general utility debuff. It just makes people worse at things. They're slightly less likely to hit and slightly more likely to suck at future spells. So,
I like it. I think it's a little clunkily implemented. I mean, okay, make a charisma saving throw. Not that many things target a charisma saving throw. There could be plenty of things, but no charisma or terrible charisma. I just don't see what's a D4 rather than just say take a -2.
Well, unfortunately, this is the 5th Ed. Never make a modifier when you can add a funky dice to it instead. And this is one of the avenues that 5th Ed closed off for itself.
It's the same with Bless, isn't it? It's the opposite of Bless.
Yeah, Bless would in turn add a D4 to the people you're buffing. But yeah, they basically hamstrung themselves, say no, we can't have just -2 because 3 people from 4th Ed kept complaining about -2s and -4s to everything. Presumably they had not been told that Pathfinder 2A was coming to fix all that.
At low levels, if you have a more melee focused build, if you're not doing that much buffing or debuffing, I think it's a solid spell. The fact that you can only have one concentration spell at a time may limit its usefulness.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's particularly great. It's an archetypical spell. It is you want to have the basic, this makes their numbers go down debuff spell, but I don't think it shares, breaks any molds. And like most debuffs, as Owen always says, the best debuff is dead. So it feels kind of niche.
It's in because Bless is in.
Yeah,
basically
that's fair. Yeah, because it's 5th Ed. They feel they need to have basic buffs, basic debuffs, but it's just not a system that really rewards buffing. There's not going to be that many creatures where the D4 is going to make the difference.
I disagree, because it is a very tight. The numbers in the system are fairly tight, so I think that any buffs and any pluses make a big difference. Flanking is hugely powerful as well. Any bonus you can get, but what I find poor about it is the lack of dependability with it. Because having a +4 or a -4 to a roll is massive. Having a +1 or a -1, not that big a deal. It's important, but it's not like it doesn't change everything.
I think minus 1d4 to saves is going to be more impactful than the minus 1d4 to attack. Because if you can hit something's weak save, and there's also got a Bane on it, there's a good chance it's going to fail. And there are Saver Sucks in 5th Ed, so... Well,
crucially with this, you don't target one particular thing, do you? It just impacts all of it.
No, it's 3 characters. Three.
But it affects any of their attack rolls or saving throws. Yeah.
It's a flat debuff, it's fine. I wouldn't upcast it much.
If upcasting is daft, sure, I'll use a 3rd level slot and I'll target 5 creatures. Yeah, you're not really going to do that, though, are you? For a 3rd level spell,
you would just fireball them. For preparing a 1st level slot, I could see myself preparing Banes and basically using them on a. I'm just going to cast a cantrip this fight. I'll cast Bane. Yeah, it's fine. It's a keeper. It's not terribly interesting, but it's a keeper.
I think this is definitely one of those that qualifies for compression. Bane/Bless. Just keep it. You either buff or debuff depending on what the situation is. I agree with Liam. The D4 is too swingy in some sense, or not swingy enough. Make it dependable, so that you know what you're getting out of it. 3 creatures, not enough to deal with mobs really effectively. It's probably better in you meet an evil party fight where you've got a couple of choice characters you need to stimmy. But
you could throw it on the Orc Chief and then two random mooks,
But the fact that it's in here with Bless to do exactly the same things but mirror universe means that they should be in the same spell. Just choose, at cast, choose something and roll with it. So I guess cut and compress for me.
Yeah, I'd just say I can see what it's in. I see its basic functionality, but I'm not going to shed tears so it disappears. So let's call that a weak pass for me. Next we get into a duo spells. Banishment and Banishing Smite. So one of them is the basic effect is a 4th level spell. The other is a 5th level spell that basically turns the 4th level spell into a rider on a special attack. I have thoughts about the weird interaction between Paladin spells and Smite, because there's just Smite where you spend one of your spells as energy to make your Smite bigger, but then there's also special Smite spells which essentially work the same way because it's just a bonus action to charge up, but they're spells so you can counter them and stuff, and maybe there are things that are immune to spells but wouldn't be immune to your Smite. It's a weird distinction that I don't think, and I feel like having all the Smite spells as just riders on the basic Smite, where you can have full damage, you can take half damage and add Banishing or setting on fire or whatever. My blanket thing for the Smite spells is just I don't think they should be spells because they're a class feature hiding as a spell, and that's never great.
You've pretty much summarized what my problem is with the Paladin class in 5th Ed, and that's that pretty much everything's based on the spell slots, which means effectively it's a daily thing. So everything is based on daily abilities, and you don't really get much in the way of short rest rebuffs and stuff. Specifically this one, Banishing Smite. The big issue with this, right? So it does extra damage, and then if you reduce the target to 50 hit points or fewer, it's banished. But if the spell, and it will come back when the spell ends, or it will come back. So it will come back when the spell ends, and that will be concentration up to 1 minute. Or you're a primary melee character, you're going to be up battering things in the face. It will end when you take damage, have to make a concentration check and lose concentration, and then the big bad comes back.
Isn't Banishment's clause that if you stick out the 10 rounds, it stays permanently gone?
If it's extra planar, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Banishing Smite does not have that rider, but I think
Banishment
that
does.
Banishment does.
Yeah. So
okay, so it's like a weird CC, sort of unreliable CC.
Yeah, like it's more reliable if you're the wizard who's just like banish and then ride off into the distance so no one can hit you, or hide behind a rock and a barbarian. Then it's possibly more useful. I understand why you would have it as an effect for a paladin because you hit the demon and it is with a single blow it is banished back to the deepest pits of the abyss and such. I get that, but like.
If you take it down to nearly dead, anyways.
Yeah, because this is 5th ed, where if you're casting 5th level paladin spells, you're going to be doing 50 damage a round anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess the thing is that it is incapacitated while it's gone, so it can't be rebuffing. Now, if it has some ability like fast healing, would you rule that is there? Probably.
I get not wanting the banishment effect to be this auto win, where you actually have to do the banishment and then figure out how to keep the concentration up the entire minute so that it becomes permanent. But then you have this secondary version which doesn't have that same clause, and
it's weird.
Yeah,
okay, my take on this: Banishment is fine. It's a good spell. It has some good, interesting narrative uses when you need some key person out of the way for exactly the right amount of time. So they're not there when the fireball hits, or they're not there to pull the lever and end the campaign with bad ending. Banishing Smite is like, why would I give the thing I'm trying to kill an escape clause? It gets out of there for 10 rounds, whatever. If I want it dead, I want it dead. I want it dead at my feet.
There's 2 demons. You do a pile of damage to it. It's force damage, so it should avoid most immunities and stuff. And then you deal with everything else, and then it pops back once everything else is clear, and you've healed up a bit. It's pretty circumstantial, to be honest. So why wouldn't you just do a pile of damage to it?
Yeah, I just want it dead. Banishment Smite out. Banishment, sure, keep it. It's
I think
a good brand recognition.
Yeah.
Do we want to keep going, or
sure?
Anything else we said on these two, as they are kind of an Abbott and Costello?
I guess the one thing about banishing Smite, where it would be better than Banishment is a save. Banishing Smite, there's not.
Yeah,
it's just you do damage, and if it's 50 HP or less, it's gone.
Yeah, which is neat, but I wouldn't. It's the differences between the two spells are just annoyingly enough to make them awkward and make me want to say just have a different managing effect as part of the class ability later. But anyway, I've already said that.
Right.
So next
Barkskin.
up, Barkskin. It is the Druid version of Mage Armor, and it has an interestingly simple effect where instead of Mage Armor, we can upcast it. This is just your AC is 60 or better. If you're also somehow wearing full plate on top of your Barkskin, it is obviously using full plating, but it is just as a general rule, your AC is always 60.
It's concentration.
Concentration for an hour, so it is very far from the utility of Mage Armor. But
what's the duration of Mage Armor, and what's the
is there a
concentration rider on it? No,
8 hours, and that's it.
No concentration.
And it's a lower level spell, so
if the targeted market for Barkskin is Moon Druid wild shaping into bear with 11 AC. God, I'm hitting everything up Barkskin instead. The problem is when you get hit and you have to make a concentration save and you fail your Barkskin, you lose it, and you're like, poop. So you're probably happier.
Not too bad. Because it's touch, it's not too bad for your Raging Barbarian who has resistances. Because that half damage. That half damage would mean. Yeah, actually, well, they're not making the save. I guess you're hiding in the back. And when you get damaged, it's the save.
Yeah,
but
it's like casting someone else.
The favored one is if someone does 16 AC, you hit them and go put on some armor for God's sake.
Yeah,
the only person who benefits from this, kind of realistically, is the Wild Shape Druid, and they're getting hit. So
it's
a second level spell.
Yeah.
Like,
it's the thing to put it like at certain level. You're whatever, you're level 12 druid, or second level slot, kind of whatever. But only lasts an hour, and it's easy to lose. So
yeah, that's
you could probably reskin mage armor a bit and just go.
I really do feel like a lot of basic buffs would much benefit much more from just saying, when a druid cast a spell, it is called Barkskin. When a wizard calls it, it's called Mage Armor. When a warlock calls it, this is the Armor of Agathis. Or, rather than having to make a separate spell for druids so they don't feel bad about, wearing 3 leaves and some mud, just let them cast Mage Armor and call it something different. Like, why do we have to have this secondary spell, which is just inconvenient in all kinds of random ways?
Kind of weirdly written. So its AC can't be less than 16, and it does get the benefit of armor it's wearing as well. Is that correct?
So if you're helpless, you still have AC 16?
Yeah, I guess. But they still have advantage on you because you can't move. So it's not like this might have been an interesting effect to have in something like Pathfinder, maybe, where you could sort of cancel out other armor penalties, maybe. But in 5th Ed, this is just
Mage Armor specifically says if you put on armor, spell ends. You lose Mage Armor. This works with armor. I'd still don't like the concentration thing. I think the duration of an hour is fine at second level spell.
I think
I don't think I'd keep it as is.
Yeah, I just say it's just use Mage Armor. Like, just call Mage Armor something different, so that druids don't feel bad.
See, they kind of do different things, but it's not something I want to quibble about. I think the fact that it's so easy to lose, as Owen pointed out, is why I'd get rid of it.
Different skills, but skills don't really do much in 5th Ed.
True. What's next?
Beacon of Hope. So this is, I think, a relatively new.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it is. You had anyone within 30 feet that you choose has advantage on wisdom saves and death saves, and when healed, gains the maximum possible healing. So it's a sort of a party buff spell, concentration, and it's just we expect to be making a lot of saving throws and healing a lot. So it's a sort of a situational buff spell.
Only lasts a minute.
I could see that being a great plot piece in a scenario or something where you're being assailed from all sides by horrendous undead, and the altar has this on it and can be activated X number of times or something like that. I could see that being great, but as a spell to have on my spell list,
this is a niche.
My one concentration spell.
This is an effect to have on a magic item. This is you want to have the Beacon of Hope, and the cleric is holding the Beacon of Hope and healing people desperately while the rest of the party is holding the line. That absolutely makes sense. But as a spell, this is niche. It wisdom saves are come up enough that it could be really useful, but it is still. This is again the problem with a lot of these spells, and I don't want to get too out of it, but spells are designed for. Gygax imagines them as very, filling certain niches, but actual gameplay is I want to have something that's useful in as many situations as possible, and that mismatch is where you get a lot of this spellless bloat that we're raging against right now.
I think particularly in this iteration of the game where you've got 6 saves instead of 3, I think any of the gain advantage or any kind of boost to a particular save are devalued because, a horrible undead thing comes at you. Okay, well, that might be a death save. Cool, yeah, great. Is it a wisdom save or is it a constitution save?
Or is it a
charisma save? Yeah. One writer could say one thing and one writer could say another thing, and then suddenly your buff spell's useless.
Yeah. So
you might like it on a scroll.
It's scroll, magic item, cool treasure, cool thing to have in a pinch. I wouldn't say that this is a spell that needs to be on a list.
I'm not dropping my Barkskin to cast Beacon, I hope it is.
Yeah, I think I want more damage output rather than maximizing healing.
Oh, well, then we're getting back to the best did effect is dead thing again. And 5th Ed is just such a damage high, hit points high game where, enough DPS will solve enough problems other than being dominated, I suppose.
I mean, like your 2d6 plus wisdom becoming, 16 guaranteed, 2d8 plus 5 becoming 21 guaranteed. That's solid. Like, I mean, how many times have you cast a 2d8 plus 5 healing spell and then, you got 7 hit points out of it?
Yeah. For definitely a booster for a hardcore heal cleric. Yeah, okay.
I could see this being more useful at higher levels.
Yes, especially if you do end up in those wade through a sea of undead situations or something like that.
Yeah.
I like the any possible healing source, but if you're drinking healing potions in the middle of combat, something's gone wrong. Anyways, yeah, I do like. I think you're right, guys. This is like get an NPC to cast this, or it comes on the MacGuffin. But
I never casted a 5th. I might cast it a 12th. Put it like that.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of hope.
Next up is Beast Sense, which is touch a willing creature or willing animal beast. You can see and hear through its eyes and ears, and just it's a utility spell where you turn your pet into a scouting machine. I guess.
This is a class fantasy certain people have to see through the eyes of their falcon.
Yeah.
It's all right.
You can't direct it though.
Well, presumably the thing you're casting on is your familiar or your animal buddy, because as we've seen, there are other spells that create animal buddies in the A's. So it is definitely, there is definitely the core fantasy of the Falcon Master or the person who has, a very small dog or a very large dog or a dog called a bear. And, I'm going to use my scouting bear. I'm Steiner the Druid.
So
I think if you're that kind of druid or ranger, you should have a class ability that lets you do this and whatever. I don't want to wait around 10 minutes for somebody to cast this so that their hawk or whatever can go have a gander or something.
Scouting time can often be very immaterial. Like presumably the difference between casting this as a single action versus casting as a 10-minute ritual is, in theory, you might have this kind of time critic situation where you need to scout right now, but that's generally not how scouting works. Scouting is very much we're going to spend exactly as many hours scouting this with, invisible rogues or falcons and doves that have been turned into drones or whatever. Scouting it tends to happen in sort of quasi time. So I don't know if having quibbling over durations is going to be.
I guess the reason I say that is I'm not wasting a second level slot on something so.
Yeah, you are.
It's just situational.
Don't you get the benefits of this from Find Familiar?
Depends on how your GM interprets it a lot of the time.
Does a familiar count as a beast, or is it a magical beast?
Well, I don't think they have magical beast anymore.
It'll do your bidding, and you can see through its point of viey. So
presumably you took a raven so that it can talk.
Yeah,
and you can just send it in, and it'll describe. An awful lot of the usefulness of the spell is going to depend on whether you have one of those GMs who's just like, right, you cast a spell, you get what you want, versus the GM who's like, one of the hoodoos came along, and there were 5 two-legs with the black tubes and doing this whole things from the animal's perspective.
Gets distracted by a field mouse, which then goes and devours. Yeah, you can stick around and watch it eat that field mouse if you want.
So you don't really have that with Find Familiar, as it's a spirit in the guise of an animal. And it doesn't actually care about the stuff that animal might care about.
That's what I mean.
No,
does that count as a beast?
No, but it's automatically doing the things this spell does anyways, albeit over a shorter distance. It's 100 feet for the telepathic communication. And you can see with its eyes and ears.
I think we're getting back to this idea that an awful lot of the druid abilities have all this nice flavor of you're commanding beasts, commanding animals, and there's all these sort of support spells to bring across that fantasy. And then a wizard just has the more useful version of it because it's just you make a magic thing happen that's animal shaped and it does what you want. And so you're going to end up, if you're after this core fantasy of the druid as the master beast to whom nature is bent to their whims, honestly, you probably want the best thing you want to do is just steal a whole bunch of wizard spells and give them to the druid and don't let the wizard have them. But we live in, the wizardocracy of Wizards of the Coast, and that is not a thing we're allowed to have.
As far as I can tell, this thing's advantage is distance, which you don't get with Find Familiar. Otherwise, it is almost exactly the same. It costs more, and it doesn't last as long. So, bin it. And yeah, this would probably be a class ability. Owen, any thoughts on
it? Basically what you've said. Like, it's for a specific fantasy. I want to be able to be the Beastmaster and see through my eyes. As you do. Doesn't Beastbond do something similar? Oh, no, it's only messages, isn't it?
I'm sure we'll run across it eventually.
Yeah. I would have thought we'd run across it first, because Beast Sense should be after Beastbond.
Is Beastbond not a class ability now?
Maybe it is.
Must be.
Yeah.
Right, what's after Beast Sense?
Okay, so now we have another classic debuff, Bestow Curse. This one spell is probably responsible for most of the cries for GM Fiat cursing in pretty much every edition, because this is the baseline I curse you spell, and it always has been in every edition. But the effects it gives tend to be relatively, well, for want of a better word, balanced as around being a third level spell. So because you have Bestow Curse, and then later on you have Restoration or Break Curse or whatever the cleric spell's name is. That's sort of your, we're casting curses at each other in the middle of combat idea, but because that forms a template for all curses now, because of the way people think about rules in 5th ed in D&D, which is almost always wrong. Because they say, we have Bestow Curse and we have Restore Curse. That's how curses work. And then people say, well, I would like to have the curse where you have to, go to the top of the highest mountain and, perform a ritual of purification or slay 3 dragons. And so no, I just cast Restore Curse. That's how curses work. It says so in the rules. Tap, tap, tap.
Well, then it's up to you as a writer to say it's a supernatural or a godlike or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, which kind of tends to work.
Narration plot device.
Yeah, this is a sort of more of a meta commentary, but it's just like you want to have if you want to have basic, combat curses and then adventure causing curses in the same thing, you should probably call one of them something else or say that there's but I'm merely pointing out why people might just dislike this spell and its let's call it support spells or anti spells as a thing. But as a spell in and of itself, which is probably what we're talking about, it is another debuff, and this one has options, which is generally a plus. It has choose one ability, and they have disadvantage on everything to do with it. It's a wisdom save to save against all the stuff.
Shane, you could ignore all of them bar the third.
Yeah, because there's one that's very much the obvious one, which is you must.
One is arse unless you're fighting them and they're climbing up a cliff, or they're flying or something, and need to make specific checks. So the first one is use an ability score. They get disadvantage ability checks and saving throws. The second one is they get disadvantage in attack rolls against you and only you. So unless it's a bizarre solo fight, or you happen to be a frontline caster who's casting a 3rd level necromancy spell, which is pretty unlikely. Third one is they make a whiz save at the start of every turn. If they fail, they get no action. And the third one is your attacks and spells do an extra 1d8 damage. So only one of those is actually useful and relatively dependable. The rest of them are so highly circumstantial.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the problem with having big lists of effects on your spells. There tends to be one that's just cooler.
I guess for me, this stinks of a spell that had a lot more character back in the day, which has been stripped out of it. And I think you're right. There should be a curse and greater curse, one of which is sort of does something in the moment, and the other is like inflicts that onerous sort of task on you that you have to do something.
This is a spell that they could have maybe made too big, but I can certainly imagine it where instead of the upcasting just increasing the duration, they could have had the just set a duration of, battle curse or whatever, and just say the duration. As you upcast it, you have a bigger list of stuff, and then like the lose your turns effectively being like the 6th or 7th level version, and then you could. I mean, I'm sort of going to a thesis of a lot of spells should work at basically every level and be upcastable. But that's me thinking of an ideal world where people do not want to have...
Is there a system where you can get sort of different versions of spells as you level up and they grow with you? I can't think of a system like that. Is there one? Is there a good one? One that's proven it works and that's kind of slots into a framework of a heroic fantasy RPG? Help me out here, guys. Is there anything like that? And I hate to say it, but it's starting to look like the thesis of this series is Pathfinder 2 has an awful lot of the homework on this done.
Well, it is. I mean, if we're assuming a linear progression of improvement with RPGs, then yeah.
Thankfully, yeah. That's good news. Let's hope
it came out 5 to 10 years later, was it?
Yeah.
Fair.
5 years.
5 certainly.
5, yeah.
5 certainly.
So one thing I will say, right? If I'm a high level, if I'm a lich who's reasonably powerful and can cast 9th level necromancy, I'm casting Bestow Curse on every one of my lieutenants and reasonably high level servants to make sure that they will permanently have disadvantage in attack rolls against me.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That's kind of interesting that you just entirely turn it back into a in on itself, and in on yourself has not got anything to do with the people you're against. It's
I will make sure
the people who are for you.
My lieutenants will never turn against me because they will have disadvantage on attack rolls, and if I use a 9th level spell slot, it lasts until it's dispelled, and because it's higher than 5th level, it does not require concentration.
So the problem there is that if you've got 2 lieutenants who've decided it's time for you to vacate the chair, then they just have to stand either side of you to negate the curse. It's like, disadvantage.
Hey,
let's see if I can get advantage somehow.
That's the first of my safeguards, all right?
Among his safeguards
you hold you hold their families hostages.
This is ranged touch.
Yeah.
Right? Why?
Don't know.
Because it's always been ranged touch. Right? Isn't this the kind of thing where you sometimes, casting someone at a distance?
I sort of across the battlefield and curse them so that everything goes wrong for a few minutes. They step in dog do.
Well, it's like duration's 8 hours. I'll cast this, and now I'll run away.
It's and to be fair as well, in 5th ed, it's pretty hard to key around with the ranges.
Yeah.
Some classes can kind of do it, but in other versions, it's a lot easier to do. So with being touch is not that worse, not that bad.
That's about it. Okay, this also This is a very personal point. It's got a terrible name. It should be called Curse. So when you're going looking for it, you'd find it in the seas, where a curse would be. Bestow Curse is a clunky name for a clunky spell. That is just, I suppose the other thing you could call it is mildly inconvenience. I don't like this at all. Cut away.
I think there's enough meta commentary on curses and how they should work, and people wanting more mythical permanent curses versus this is just a debuff spell which has some interesting effects. But I think turn Bane into this. Just give Bane this stuff or the lesser versions of it. Make Bane good again as opposed to Bestow Curse.
You getting the hat
brain great again.
Right, what comes after Curse?
I mean, in different versions, I like the spell. This is a terrible iteration of it. Just terrible.
Yeah. So here's I would like to just say that I think this is the spell which I think is going to gold standard, because this is the spell that is doing the thing that I want all these spells to do. This is Bigby's Hand. This is in previous editions there was basically a different Bigby's Hand spell for every spell slot. And each one of them had somewhere between Bigby's Playful Tickle to Bigby's, just crush you into paste hand. And what they've done, very smart thing for 5th Ed, is they just standardize these all down to different effects of one 5th level spell. And as you use it, you cast it, you choose one of the many effects, and the hand just goes and does that effect. It does random stuff, niche stuff, like interposing for cover, grappling, crushing, punching. It's a very useful spell that you can just cast, use concentration, have an entire minute of random of effects, all of which are important. It's bonus actions
and bonus actions, yeah.
Yeah, so this is, I think, the gold standard of how this culling process should go. Is that we should be combining spell effects into a small group of spells which have core effects and scale properly. And I mean,
I think there's enough guidance in the spell as well that if a player wants to be a bit creative and describe an effect that they want to do with it, that a competent GM could go, yeah, okay, I'll allow that because it's no more powerful than all of the other effects that are listed here.
Yeah. You can use the grappling to move people around, or there's a forceful one, there's a one that just moves,
shove stuff off a cliff.
Yeah, or just pick up a party member and move them around. Say they choose to fail their save, and
they're in that zone of effect and are unconscious or conscious, and they'll take damage at the start of their turn. So I'll just shove them out of that area of effect.
Yeah, can see the nice handy effect, and yeah, I think this is a gold standard for how these kinds of spells should go. Which makes me want to start going on to a rant about why they don't do that.
Okay, before you take us down that rabbit hole, Owen, Bigby's Hand, a lot of text, a lot of effects.
I'm Hand Man. Look, I'm going to get you. I'm going to paint a face on the hand so we can talk and cast ventriloquism. Ooh, he's my right hand man. Ooh.
So it's got comedy value.
I like it to a certain extent. I mean, it's a big, it's a pretty D&D classic spell. I create a big giant hand, do things to people with my big giant hand. It's being Reed Richards without looking stupid. It was just like, ooh, look at my hand, My hand gets you and shakes you. It's
it's kind of somewhere between Fantasia. Yeah, it's kind of dumb. In its actual sort of manifestation as a big hand, it does have that kind of chuck value. It's a spell so good that several companies have made a miniature for it.
Yeah,
is what I'd say.
For me, I don't know that it's for me. I like it because it's a versatility spell. I don't see it being one that I would cast very often. If I got, say, a 3rd, 5th level spell, I think that would be a good one. It's kind of hard for me to argue that I might take that over, say, Wall of Force or Cloud Killer, Cone of Cold or something. But, to have there just in case you need it, it's not bad. And as I say, it's a bonus action, which there's not that many ability things that require a wizard to use a bonus action. There's a handful of spells of it. So,
if you upcast it, the damage to the clenched fist option increases by 2d8, and the damage to the grasping hand increases by 2d6 for each slot above 5th. So if I cast with a 7th, it's still only 68 punch damage, but the grasp damage has gone up to 66. Yeah. So the clenched fist only scales once, whereas the grasping scales multiple times. Yeah. Am I right or am I wrong?
For each slot level above 5th.
It's not the way I would have written it if that was the thing, but do you see the way it's kind of slightly ambiguously written?
Yeah, I think there's a clause there that kind of encompasses both. What I would note is that it has one major downside in that almost all these effects, except for Clenched Fist, specifically call out that it is an effect on a creature. And for the utility part of this spell to come in, I really would want to be able to do things like shove the wagon off the cliff, or push the boat along the lake or something,
or grab and smash the railway
things.
or something.
I think there's a lot. I think that's a curious and probably deliberate omission, but it plunges it back into the realm of, well, is this going to do as much damage as Fireball? In which case, you're probably going to want to cast something else that's just more damage focused. I'd be pleading with the GM to allow this to affect objects.
Yeah,
but then you'd need a few rules around how it interacts with objects.
Yeah, I suspect that even though there was various OSR voices, trying to make Fifth Ed go a little bit more in that sort of problem solving thing, that the breaking object rules in Fifth Ed were maybe a bit too clunky, and they didn't want to make spells that emphasize those too much. Yeah, I would say that is definitely a clause where you could change the writing. So
yeah, that's
it might require some other back end object solving, object manipulation rules. But yeah, I definitely. I mean, one way is with Baldur's Gate 3 out and it being all about object manipulation. I suspect that there is currently a rapid prototyping for better object smashing rules going on in the latest edition of D&D Next.
I'll wait and see. I like Bigby's Hand. It's got lots of flavor. It's goofy. It has the promise of being a great utility spell, but unfortunately, I think the way it's written in Fifth Ed sort of puts it back into competition with straight up damage spells, and there it does not excel.
As I said, I think this is my ideal spell. There are some clauses where you're as a GM, you're going to have to say, yeah, it works on items, or yeah, you can carry a cat with it.
This might be the time the GM sticks the hat on and says, as long as you're not taking the piss.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. It'd just be nice if it was written so you didn't necessarily have to do that. Right.
I mean, Fifth Ed all over is GM make decisions about it. So if this is where you're going to stick the line down and say, no, you can't pick up that pencil, or no, you can't catch those falling rocks.
You can hold on to an ogre, but you can't pull a lever.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you prepared Mage Hand, right? I'm a
magical lever.
Now. I'm going to be honest. I want Mage Hand to be you cast Mage Hand at first level, it does Mage Hand. You cast at fifth level, it's Bigby's Hand. That's what I want. But
that's interesting.
Yeah, but okay. So this is where we get into the big problem, which is why you even up into fourth ed, you had 27 versions of Bigby's Hand for every possible thing a hand could do, and let's not even talk about the Book of Erotic Fantasy versions.
I think what's happening here, Shane, is that Owen and I want Fifth Ed to be Pathfinder, and you want Fifth Ed to be one of the OSR games, or you want it to be Errant or DCC or one of those guys.
I'm not saying necessarily, but going on with this. But I think the thing here we're dealing with is original D&D up to third ed was very much in the mind space of spells being a type of treasure, where you would one of the things that was supposed meant to be attracting a wizard into the dungeon was the chance to find scrolls and spell books that had a whole bunch of extra spells in them, and then they would bring them out, go through the horribly overcomplicated downtime process of scribing them into the scroll book, bankrupt themselves utterly, and then have to go into the dungeon not just for spells but for more magical ink money, and that was the impetus that Gygax and the other early D&D designers put into the game, was that each of these niche effects could be an extra source of treasure, essentially, and then you could put the focus on the most equipped wizard who has has all the niche spells in their spell book. Well, then they will be able to go, oh, we're going to the Dungeon of Mind Flayers, let's cast Beacon of Hope, or we're going into a place where we have no cover, so I'm not going to use Bigby's Grasping Hand this time, I'm going to use Bigby's Interposing Hand, which will block all of the arrows of the goblins that are going to outflank us, because our GM is a wargamer in disguise. And this was the imagination of the D&D designers, is that having all these niche effects and letting a wizard player spend 45 minutes, during the games, arguing over every single spell they prepared was cool, good, interesting gameplay. But in actuality of actually playing the game, was very rarely for the benefit of all these niche effects to be useful enough, as opposed to, I'm just going to prep 37 fireballs and fireball every room we come into. Or just say, I could cast Mage Armor, or I could cast Barkskin, or I could just cast one of these many immunity spells and be, deflect all arrows for 8 hours and just walk through. And it goes on like this. It's like the design of spells as treasure, spells as this neat way for magic users to show their skill by picking the right spells, did not survive contact with let's just charge to the dungeon, fireballing everything we can find. Players wanted utility spells, sure, but it was utility that was not at a cost. That there was utility that was like, well, I could use this. They wanted to be able to use the common spells that were useful in many ways, and just have those be more useful, because start arguing with the gem. I think Fireball could be used as an intimidation tactic, so we don't need to roll intimidation, right? The actual players had a very every problem is a nail mentality to how they wanted to pick their spells, and they've sort of started with Fifth Ed realizing this, but they just couldn't jettison the idea because they had all these cool spells, and if they didn't have each and every one of the spells that were in the original D&D Player's Handbook, there would be cries of, it's just Fourth Ed again, they're throwing our legacy into the trash. Anyway, that's my rant.
Okay, now I'm definitely calling it after this last one for today. So what follows on from Bigby's hand and that TED Talk?
Into the blade spells. Onto the blade barrier is the next one.
Okay. Isn't Black Tentacles?
Depends on where you're looking.
No, it's Wall of Force, but made of knives.
No. The problem is we're once again reached the point where if you're looking at D&D Beyond, it says Black Tentacles, but if you're looking at Player's Handbook, like I am, it's Evard's Black Tentacle, which is
yes. And we have decided to stick with the print edition on this one, so we're moving on to...
Good, 'cause that's what's sitting on my lap.
Blade Barrier.
Yeah.
Blade Barrier. So, the other thing that makes Bigby exceptional is he kept his name in a spell in the trimmed down rules. So...
Some people like there being a million different walls. I don't know if you got Wall of Fire and Wall of Force. Do you need a Blade Barrier?
Well, yeah, like that's the thing.
Probably not really.
Blade Barrier is in theory cooler because it depending on how you art it. Like if you art it as being like, because a lot of people just sort of imagine as a force field that you walk through and it cuts you somehow, but if you see really cool art where, it's 1,000 swords, each one with the name of an angel on it, or, you summon, because you're the god of buzzsaws, you have 1,000 buzzsaws in your right in front of you. But yeah, this is a level higher than Wall of Force, which is you cannot pass through this unless you have a high level wizard with a disintegrate spell. And you definitely can't get through
You've got 3/4 cover rather than it's a Wall of Force. You're not shooting through it.
Yeah, it's like this is weaker, and in theory, it's like a weird temptation spell where it's like, oh, you could, if you dare, you may be able to get through this barrier of 1,000 blades. Oh, which of you goblins would dare to roll 20 on your saving throw? You know,
It has some utility if you've got a party that's kind of focused on pushing and pulling and stuff. I cast my blade barrier, you cast your Bigby's hand, I'll just, my blade barrier is here, and, then you use your Bigby's hand to slap people back into the wall. I don't know that we need another wall, and I don't know that it needs to be a level higher than the other walls.
Blade barrier is a classic cleric damage spell. That's what it actually is.
I think
you cast it onto people, and then they're like, okay, make a save and pick which side of the wall you're on.
Yeah,
that's its actual niche. It's got form in terms of clerics casting blade barrier and splitting up fights.
Yeah, but the issue is, it's again, I think one of these situations where back in second ed they couldn't give clerics as effective a spell as the wizard had in Wall of Force, so they had to give them a version with more flavor, but that didn't work as usefully for the thing that in theory barriers are meant to do. But
I wonder why cleric is the least popular class in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, like I like blade barriers flavor. I kind of like it more than Wall of Fire, just because it's more evocative to have like a wall made of swords and buzzsaws and sharp pieces of glass or whatever. It's just definitely one of those things where if you like to like describe your spells as being specific to your character, you can have a lot of fun explaining what sharp things is your blade barrier made of, or the like. But
I had a side career in haberdashery before I started my career as an adventurer. They are all pins.
I would do that. I would totally do that.
They would have to do piercing damage rather than slashing damage, though.
Yeah, but yeah, like it's a cool effect, and I would like it. But when it's fighting for the just it works, shut up of Wall of Force, I'm going to be honest, I would rather cut Wall of Force because absolutes are bollocks, and you shouldn't have spells that just say go screw. I think you should have spells like Blade Barrier. But if someone else wanted to say, let's just cast Wall of Force and forget about Blade Barrier, I understand that too.
Huh. It's one of those. It's in as a classic. Someone cast it once. Gandalf cast it, so put it in here. Now, mechanically, I kind of think it's okay. It's as Owen says, it's that you've got a difficult choice to make. Are you going to cross the ground and get hurt? Like you're taking at least half 60-10, or are you going to stay outside while we deal with you using sort of ranged magic or ranged spell? Because the wall provides 3/4 cover to creatures behind it. I kind of read that as we can shoot out of this, so we can't do a Wall of Force. So I understand why it's a level higher in some respects. However, its area is kind of tricky. 100 feet long. There's not a lot of things I want to create 100-foot kind of front against. Or you get the 60 feet in diameter circle, which is like, yeah, we can hunker inside this, but again, 5 feet thick. The fact that the space you cross is difficult terrain suggests to me that what I really want here is a blanket of blades. I'd like the same area in a more versatile package. I'd like something that scales into a cone or into a
that's very much a 5th ed thing, though. I mean, other versions have other versions of D&D and Pathfinder stuff have had that you can effectively form the shape you want. You can make your I cast this in the corridor and it's a whole pile of very close put together blocks. So I've got 40 feet of blades. Good luck getting through that.
Yeah, that's what I want from this, especially at this level. I think it is hampered significantly by the fact that it is such a thin barrier after all. Because something that can kind of eyeball 60-10 damage and decide, fair enough, I'll go for it. you really want to have to make that choice more than once.
Yeah.
And with this version spell, it doesn't have to. It just gets in there and presumably starts pulling heads off.
Yeah, I think the advantage of Blade Barrier, as Shayna said, over Wall of Force is what Ryan Macbeth, the YouTuber, says is you want to give your opponents problem. You want to give your opponents dilemmas, not problems.
Yes.
Problems have one solution, and that is, okay, we need to get rid of that Wall of Force, whereas a dilemma has two solutions, power through or, right, we'll just deal with it and try and sit on the other side of it, and either way is a bad outcome for them.
Great cards, them dilemmas.
Yeah.
I think if I was up against a cloud of Sturges, and I mean like more Sturges than a man can eat in one sitting, I'd want something like this in my back pocket. It's really effective then. To take down swarms of things that are otherwise going to give you a hard time, like Efreet or like Efreets, things like that. But at 6th level, you could probably find a better thing, some sort of cloud
even
or
cleric damage spells will, wipe out most hordes at that point. I mean, we're going to eventually get to one of the most infamous broken cleric spells of 5th Ed, and that's probably going to be where
today we're not. But yeah, I think as people have pointed out, there's a lot of other barriers a level lower, and this is another one of those. Can't we just fit these all into right like Bigby's hand, have different effects for the barrier type you choose, but have it all sort of sit inside one spell? Why not?
I will say this does a waj more damage nearly every spell.
Yeah, it should at the for the cost of the extra level.
Yeah.
So if you can find a way to hold someone in it or keep pushing them through it, it's really funny.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, you could absolutely blender. I mean, that's what it's presented like. It's a magical blender. However, getting the utility of the blender is, well, I have to keep whatever I want blended, engaged with the blades. And as it's written, there's not a lot of ways to do that without either moving them or moving it. Okay, that is...
No, we can get Blade Ward done. Come on.
We do Blade Ward? Oh.
Because it's very quick. This is going to be very quick. Casting time, 1 action, duration 1 round. You get resistance against bludgeoning, piercing, slashing dealt by weapon attacks for 1 round. Arse, forget it. Axe it.
Gone.
Why is it cantrip? And what is it? Are you like the pain mage who just likes? I'm happy to just stand here and get stabbed 1,000 times, but I only want to take half the stabbing damage.
I'm gonna walk through that blade barrier. I'll cast this. That's the only thing I can think to use it for.
If this was castable as a bonus action, it still probably wouldn't see play.
Yeah.
Bonus action. I could see it. Yeah. Other than that,
I mean, this is just weird. This is a spell that exists because people thought of a certain kind of math. It was just like, what if there's a spell that gave you half damage for 1 turn? And it's just like that's not a premise for a spell. I like division. Not even log division, like simple division. No. What
unlike a lot of cantrips, it does not get better as you go open level. It just stays the same.
If the spell description ended at and slashing damage, I'd consider it. But and slashing damage dealt by weapon attack specifically, nope.
Oh, so it wouldn't even work against Blade Barrier. That's not a weapon attack.
Exactly. Yeah, it has a potential if they'd simply chop a little bit off it. But that's the theme of this series, folks.
Yeah.
But that's I have a full-throated agreement. This does not require any more discussion. Leave.
Yeah.
All right, so that is we did a few there. I think we got about 10 done.
Yeah, so halfway through the bees.
More cooks did not slow us down significantly. This has been the Cull. I believe this is episode 3.
Yeah.
Where we're true to form. We're halfway through our chosen victims, the bees. If you've any thoughts on any of the spells we've covered, cut, or reconditioned,
or you'd like to explain to us how Blade Ward is broken,
show us your ward wizard. You can contact us on our Discord. You find a link or a way to find us in the show descriptions or somewhere below. So but until the next time we sharpen our knives and get the rest of the bees onto the chopping block, this party's over. Thank you for listening to the Adventuring Party. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can head on over to SpeakPipe and drop us a line. Or you can join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and Twitter. Or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license. But you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.
I just realized what it's for. It's for like people using Blade Singer or Eldritch Knight. That's what it's for. It's for if you have a thing where you
one big attack coming in,
or like when no, it's like if you have one of the features which is like I cast a bonus action. I do a full attack and do a bonus action, or I cast a cantrip and I get a free attack. Or, it's one of those classes. It's for those classes where casting spell gives you extra attacks or something. That's what it's for, so that you can just tank at the front line, or
so you cast it on yourself and then go and attack someone.
Yeah, like it's like Eldritch Knight. Eldritch Knight has the ability to cast a cantrip, get an attack as well.
It's casting one action, duration is 1 round.
Yeah, but it's like Eldritch Knight has it. Whenever you cast a cantrip, you also get to get a bonus action attack.
Right.
I can see that you do not play Eldritch Knights and have never cared about the whole spellcaster fighter thing.
At a higher level, that one action is costing you 2 attacks or more, right?
In theory,
attacks to do this.
Like, do you want to spend another 50 minutes going through all the different versions?
Oh, this is going in the back.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. Like, there's classes that could use it for a while, and this is okay. That's an entire different rant.
Why not just cast shield and not get hit?
Oh,
yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, fair.
This is all going after the credits. No, all right, guys. I've got to go see a man about some shoes, and hopefully not get rained on. There's spuds to be dug, is there?
There's spuds to be dug.
Good man. Did you put down many rows this year?
So my dad got a little tractor, and he went a bit mad, and he basically ploughed 5 rows while several of us were giving out to him, and he went away on holidays. It hadn't got picked down. Lads, we'll go out and spend an hour every day digging some of them and putting them away in the shed.
How are you going to store them?
We've got a potato shed. That's basically, full of. Now this is naughty, but we have we have potatoes in barrels of peat moss.
Oh, very good. That'll keep.
We shouldn't do that, but
until they start digging the damn stuff up.
Like we reuse it for planting after that.
Yeah,
we still shouldn't
extra utility. The last time we saved potatoes back in Roscommon, we actually went old school and buried them in a pit lined with rushes, and it was very, very effective. But yeah, you've got to have a plan for how to use that many potatoes. 5 rows, like
I've got fucking buckets though, man.
You're off to the farm market, mate. Yeah, let's load up the car and sell them off.
So he did a bunch of different ones. So that some of them were good at chips, some of them were good at things. Like,
excellent
stuff like that.
Once they're not fucking roosters.
No.
Yeah.
Kelly's.
I hate when I'm in Tesco or wherever else, and it's like, what potatoes have they got? Roosters, and that's it. Like, God damn it.
Rubbish.
They're not good at anything. They're an all-rounder that are terrible, that are okay at most things, but not good at anything.
Got Seville, Kelly's, 2 other main types he had, Some real big lumpy fuckers,
Yeah.
Some of them were good at chips, some of them were good at boiled potatoes, that sort of stuff.
Brilliant. All right, this is the most Irish podcasting we've ever been, so I'm going to leave us at that.